This will be a first part of a Castle T series of game ideas that everybody is free and even encouraged to steal. Just a side note, even if somebody uses the same idea that I might have used someday, it's very likely that they will use it in a different way than I will eventually use it. And I think that's beautiful. That's amazing. Metroidvania Month 25 is coming up, and I noticed that there isn't really a place to vote on themes this year. So I asked Falcon and learned that he's decided to ditch the themes this year. In light of that, since everybody's now running around themeless, I thought I might make this video and provide some inspirations. Change something about the player or the power-ups. For example, you could eliminate a power-up, like the double jump, climbing, or ledge grab, dash, grappling hook, or even for hard mode, attacking or jumping itself. You can split what's usually one power-up into two. One game that did this recently was Leap Year, which lets you jump normally, but not always land normally. Give the player random abilities, or change up the abilities given between respawns or between runs of the game, as with the puzzle platformer Mosalina. Although you'll probably want to tightly design the game so that the random abilities the player gets are actually workable, and also ideally give them a reason to replay. An unusual upgrade or an unusual key. For example, Dan Collins' Life of the Party, you get new dance moves. The only real mobility ability you get is a jump. The dance moves let you get into cooler and cooler parts of the party. Make every ability do multiple things. This is generally just good game design. So for example, a ground pound might break a bad floor, but also serves an attack against the enemies. Make all abilities temporary, like in an old Kirby game. Whether you have to defeat enemies to get them, that's up to you. Moving away from abilities, you could move into some other sort of mechanical ideas. For example, you could lean full on into the XP grind. How do you make that interesting? There's a lot of strategy RPGs that may do this. For example, the Disgaea games will allow you to enter item dungeons and upgrade your items by just clearing higher and higher levels of item dungeon. Or again, Dan Collins, his last game allowed you to just embrace the grind of an old school platformer, and it really worked because it had enough charm to keep things a little bit interesting, and also it did not overstay its welcome. You could do a press your luck mechanic with platforming or combat. Maybe the further in you can get without dying or taking a hit, the better you will be for it in the long run. But you might get set back to the start of that section or the start of that sort of combat loop if you make a false move. Thinking in particular here of Crosscode as an example. Or what about a game where you could actually lose your equipment or your upgrades and not regain them until the next save point or death? Maybe you have a grappling hook or a rope or even a sword or a gun that you could accidentally leave behind. Maybe a freeze ray also freezes itself in place and you literally can't reuse it until your next save point. Change the requirements. For example, what if a player had to keep moving or not stand still for too long, or they would take damage? What if you had a limited air or life until you reach the next save station? Or maybe the player is some kind of vampiric entity and has to kill enemies to survive. What if you have to die or take damage in a special way to finish the game? Maybe there's a death loop or a recurring puzzle involved in this. What if there's a requirement to make a tactical choice in order to proceed through the game? For example, choosing between two power-ups. To be clear, I know that sometimes moral choices impact the mechanical options that a player has in at least a soft way, with, for example, Undertale, or One Step from Eden, etc. But I'm talking about choices that are primarily tactical or strategic, not moral. You could change something about the world or about combat. For example, you could make it so that enemies could be used in combat or in puzzles, thinking maybe of a sort of a monster taming element, or even just being able to freeze enemies and jump on them, like in Transit Ruby from a few years ago. Environmental destruction or creation as a player power, modular level segments. And what I mean here is split the level into smaller rooms or hallways that can be put together in different ways. This could be used for procedural generation, and in fact, I have done so in the past. But you could also give the player the opportunity to rearrange the level. That's been seen in at least one or two games that unfortunately I don't remember the names of, but I have seen them. I know they exist. It's been done before, and it could be done again. To make the world all about the secrets, not primarily about mobility abilities, although those could still be important for accessing the secrets, but to really put an emphasis on finding the secrets. Make a world all about the traps. Make really heavy use of dungeon traps, such as in a Dark Souls or a Bloodborne game or Salt and Sanctuary, or even maybe take inspiration from traps such as in Minecraft or Terraria. Try for only one respawn point. For example, I think Trash Quest did this, and that was a very interesting thing. They designed their mini Metroidvania map so well that everything still felt well connected. And then lastly, we have sort of thematic and other goals. When I showed this list to some people, Lancer actually suggested that my Cloverjam game, Tower and Moonlight, might be an interesting one to look at for sort of subverting upgrade expectations or world exploration expectations, and to see if you could do something similar on a grander scale. Even though it's got some sort of like Metroidvania-y aspects, it's also kind of linear or cyclical in itself. Not really a closed open world the way that a Metroidvania is. You could make a detective game if you wanted to. Maybe just a game where you're actually all about gathering evidence. I think somebody actually did this in MVM 24. You could design for technically optional upgrades. So you want to assume that most players will find and use the upgrades, but also leave a path for players who simply didn't find the right upgrade. Now that's difficult and may result in people, especially in a jam context, who don't have time to play your game, thinking the game is just harder than it's meant to be. So you might want to warn players about this one at the risk of spoilers. Silhouettes are nice. Do as much as you can with those. Sort of an ambiguity. You won't necessarily know what a shadow is until you've actually interacted with it. So that could be good if you're going more of a horror route. Animals, but like really animals. Anthros or furries, if you will, that's a cop-out here. We're not talking about things that look like animals that just move and act like humans anyway. Make the game about an animal, however personified it is, that actually moves like the animal does. Mythology, but like real mythology. Don't just like take whatever mythology from Civilization and just sort of like appropriate it for your game, but actually like do research on a specific myth and tell the story of that myth with your Metroidvania. If you came into the jam star for inspiration, maybe something's tick the box for you that makes you really want to go for it, in which case enjoy. This video was about a lot of general ideas, and a lot of them are a little less specific to me sort of clearing out my idea folder. But in future installments, I am going to be clearing out my idea folder a lot more. I also want to shout out Zephyr and Case Lord and probably several others from the Metroidvania Month Discord, whose ideas might have shown up here without exact proper attribution. Apologies if so, and you all are the real ones. Anyway, that's it. That's the first of these sort of game design idea videos. I'm trying to do the YouTube thing a little more seriously with Castle Teeth than I had in the past. So, of course, I would encourage anybody watching to like, comment, subscribe. If there's a unique idea that I've missed, put it down there. I'll see if I can respond. And hope to see you in the next one.